getting a little particular last time,
Right.
but we'll try to skim and we'll just try to hit highlights and not read every single word,
Yeah,
Baloo.
yeah. So we got a comment from an individual by the name of Alexander. Lucky for him, he got, he's just, there's no numbers or letters after his, it's just Alexander. He said in a comment, I think it was on number 3 of our Kamandi, please try and say it's more of a comic dive through the history. So I obviously liked that comment and responded with, thank you very much. Jake and I will discuss it on our next episode. Um, so, here's a little bit of feedback from somebody who's, most definitely watching other people's content. And you were mentioning in episode 30, we just recorded before this, what's our meta tagging and titling and such for this. And right now it's just Kamandi Last Boy on Earth, Jack Kirby, issue 1, issue 5, and then I kind of do a dash and make some other kind of like consolidated statement. Like I think last one was Prince. What was it? The Tiger.
Prince
Yeah,
Tufton.
Prince Tufton. So um, yeah, I think we could call this Kamandi Last Boy on Earth comic dive through of Jack Kirby history, issue 5.
Absolutely.
So we're going to give that a
Yeah.
shot.
Take.
Alexander, thank you so much for taking the time and putting that comment down below. And we hope you hit this and see that and feel some good that you're supporting us, not only in just viewing, but, what Jake and I want
Feedback.
is getting that feedback. So, Jake, how excited are you for
Yeah.
issue 5 of Kamandi Last Boy on Earth, which we are doing the first 20 episodes based on this collection that I have, which was the Kamandi Last Boy on Earth Jack Kirby collection with an introduction from Mike Royer. And it's, I think this was printed in 2013. So, uh, other than the coloring, we're
How
pretty happy with it.
Yeah, no, I'm excited, and it seems though this is one of the storylines that was adopted into the 18-minute long Kamandi animated
Oh, okay.
feature that's available on TV
I have
right
to
now.
see
Yeah,
that. That's on my list. I want to see that very badly.
yeah, yeah. Well, we always complain there is not enough two-dimensional
Hell yeah.
animation of superheroes and sci-fi. Why not? Why is it all manga? So somebody hauled off and did it, a pilot, and I thought it was great, but I think what it did was it kind of like um melted together a lot of the themes in the early Kamandi books rather than going, issue by
Yeah.
issue. Like for example, it had the big grasshopper, and it had it had this scene in it too. So this is central, but as we're breaking down, issue by issue, let's see how the original first appeared in 1973, April 1973. So start us
All
off.
right. Yeah. Really exciting cover. Sword against wooden log being wielded by a gorilla. So, um, one of you
Yep.
must die, then it shall be the yellow-haired animal, which we've been making often comments about when it's come down to uh, the non-human characters really degrading uh, humans as animals, foxes and sniveling this and that and stuff. So a little social
Yeah.
commentary as it goes. This one, chapter 1, and I guess the feeling of the issue overall is one-armed bandit. So right here in the chapter 1. But I also wanted to just make we had talked about this last episode. Edited, written, drawn by Jack Kirby, lettered, inked by Mike Royer. So we were having some questions about how much obviously is DC because they have commissioned Jack Kirby to come up with a Planet of the Apes ripoff. And here He's making these pages out in California and maybe in sending some kind of mimeograph, for approval to get him to Royer, to then get him back out to New York, DC, comics to get to the newsstand. So we're still trying to figure out, how much editorial weight was placed on Jack in this story, because there's some wonky writing that we come
Right.
across.
We're gonna have to Yeah, we're gonna have to try to infer those kind of
Hmm.
things. Like, the way that Jack had been used to working with Stan Lee before he goes over to DC is that he had almost complete freedom to do
Yes.
everything. Um, and so, how did that kind of dynamic work over at DC? Where he was like, "Look, I'm just gonna send you the pages," but they did give him an assignment, right? They tasked him with create a new character, create a new world, create a whole series of situations and settings, that's all reminiscent of the hit Planet of the Apes
Yeah.
series, because DC had just we mentioned in earlier episode, DC had failed to secure the rights to do the comic version. So instead, they were going to rip it off, and there are a lot of the themes that Jack Kirby did appropriate, but he also created this whole other kind of a world that we're definitely into right now. Love this cover. You can see this is the quick Kirby, right? There's really not too much background. A lot of primary colors. We got the red, we got the yellow, we got some blues.
Great
Um,
figures, though.
and
I love that ape swinging that log. I love it.
Yep.
I can't get enough of
Right, and there's a little movement here and
it.
everything, but again, when it comes to leading the eye, right? I don't know if Jack is doing this just by subliminal force of habit at this point, or calculated, but there's always something like pointing this way, like turn the page, like it's all like right. There's like this central focus area, and it's like, yeah, turn the page, right? It's all trying to get you, to turn the
I
page.
don't think Jack has a complex bone in his body. I don't think he brings, God bless him, God bless him. I myself bring tons of complexity to my work, which overloads me and causes me to sputter out, and obviously can't put a book or two together in a month. But yes, there's always leading the eye, um, and graphically. I would like to also say last episode we were really poo-pooing the ending and wanted a real big splash. And this last panel being it, well, we kind of get our wish here.
Right.
So real second moment pickup in the next issue, which you would have had to wait 30 days to get your little hands on.
That's
Greasy little mitts.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is picking up right where we left
Hmm.
off at the end, and we did complain that he had this gigantic explosion of this huge, aircraft, all in one tiny little 1/6 of a page box. So here we get, here we get the splash, and it brings you right in. And again, you have this little like, piece of debris that's kind of like pointing like a backwards check mark. It's always pointing like, yeah, turn the page, you won't be sorry. Um, there's this text up here that nobody reads, and I was looking. I was just looking to see if there's any clues here at how he's going to advance the thinking of the plot line. Um, we did find an inconsistency where Kamandi is the last boy on Earth
Yeah.
supposedly, but then there's like he's put in a pit full of humans. So how could he be, and including boys? So how could he be the last boy on Earth? So there's just one little mention here where it says that except Kamandi, the last reasoning human left on Earth. The rest,
Thank you, Jack.
the rest of the rest of humanity has either changed or sunk to the level of beasts. As for the beasts, they have risen to the level once occupied by man. They walk and talk and make war like man once did. This is what Kamandi has stumbled into, a war between tigers and gorillas, and how will it end may be decided by the one-armed bandit, who we still haven't met
Who's
yet.
that? Who be the
We will
one?
see.
I'm going to turn the page. I want to find out.
You mean the Double page spread. Bum, bum,
Whoa, come
bum.
on.
Whoa.
Come on. How do you
Right. So this,
not lose your chickens on the farm as being like a teenager, adolescent?
yeah.
I come on.
Well, I kind of remember at the time, every time I would turn a page in a Jack Kirby, comic of this era, and this was a long span. I picked up a copy of 2001: A Space Odyssey for
Yeah,
Marvel, where they did get the
yeah.
rights, um, and he was still doing the same thing in 1979. One page splash and then a two-page spread. Um, but here, Kirby, this reminds me of those, like, Revolutionary War battle paintings. Remember
Yes,
or maybe like Civil War battle
yes.
painting. And there's so much value here. Like, all of these characters, like, here there's a lot here. There's a lot going on. I remember as a kid thinking like, oh, Jack Kirby's a cop out. He's already through three pages and he's only drawn two pictures. Um, but I didn't realize at the time the majesty of this, and I guess the commercial, um, the salesmanship aspect of it. Like, you're really giving people a lot to look at here, and not too much words, just a lot of action, right?
Right. Yeah, I just I love the fact that this gorilla is gonna use his rifle as a baseball bat, and then this tiger sees us up, obviously up here, and he's gonna take us out, So we're being inferred as apes.
Right. Yeah, and and general. I'm looking at your reprint. Generally speaking, it looks like your colors are a little darker, a little more vibrant, a little more saturated, whereas mine are a little washed out
Yeah.
here on the page. This might be 30, 40 years of aging, because here's regular white next to the quote unquote white of the paper.
White
You
of
can see it's
newsprint.
it's
Even
yeah,
when it was
it's
even when
it's
it was printed, it was not white.
it's tan and getting
Yeah.
tanner every
Yeah.
day. But yeah, but there is a difference between these reprint editions. They're still worth getting. And if you want to catch up on the whole storyline, but yeah, this is lovely. You got a lot going on. You have this kind of like um, diagonal action where he breaks up the page. These lines that cut across everything. There's debris everywhere. There's fires and smoke with Kirby dots, and and you can see, like, they haven't even the two sides haven't really intermingled yet. Yeah, mostly gorillas over here, mostly tigers over here.
And then it just keeps going, keeps on going. So they're making their way up a wall. Yeah, he's a little Tony the Tiger-ish here. His face here, that's an
Yeah,
openly inking.
yeah, maybe not so like pre-designed. It's actually hard to do humanoid cat faces. I have the same problem in my Pearl White Malady comic. We have a cat man, and getting it just right every time. How much of it is snout that sticks out, how much of it is flat like a human. Kirby it looks pretty good here on the side view,
Oh,
but
definitely,
here on the front,
definitely.
yeah, but here on the
Yeah,
front
like
view,
over
it's
here.
tough. Like, it's a little cartoony.
Yeah, still love it
Yeah,
though. Still love it.
right. So they're trying to escape and negotiate their way right around this big fight with there's like mortars going off and there's all kinds of explosions, and here they get spotted by a couple of guards, some gorillas. Um,
Double kick.
they're That's right. Yeah, they're about to get captured, but then hell no, they're not being
Okay,
taken.
I'll
So,
show you. Ready, animal?
uh-huh.
Kick.
Pow, whack.
It's awesome.
Ah.
Oh, I can't get enough. Oh,
Um, I was wondering about this on page one. It says Murdoch Airfield. I wonder if that's supposed to be
referencing
maybe
to?
there's a real airfield named that, or maybe that's a reference to Daredevil. Um, but yeah, so these guys are running away and they crash through the roof. And where are they now? They're inside this building that was labeled U.S. Air Force Supply.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where we get so we've only had what, 5 pages so far? One, two, three,
Yeah.
4, 5, and now we're already on chapter 2.
Bum, bum,
Um
bum.
so
Yeah,
yeah,
where
and
was
I
the
don't
one
know
armed
if
man?
this is a we still haven't
Still
met the
coming.
one-armed bandit.
Still coming.
Maybe we're gonna meet
Yeah.
him. But we're back here and these title pages, and it is an opportunity to kind of waste a third of a page, if you are lazy and you are rushing through. But it's also an opportunity to get a whole paragraph of explainer here, and then they just kind of repeat the cover graphics again. So this was probably pasted in from a Velox,
Mm-hmm.
and then these little lines here were connecting onto them. You physically have to draw on the background page and then draw onto the little scrap of paper that's glued on to make it look like it's
Yep.
continuous. But that's a job. It's like, when they do the word balloons, there's a lot of connections that have to be made to the artwork
Intern
that
work.
people don't. Yeah, exactly. So they crash into this building, and now they're kind of recovering and getting up on their feet, and there's this new character. Is it going to be a tiger? Is it going to be a gorilla? We don't know. Where did you two come from? Get up on your feet, or must I discipline you? He says with the whip in hand. And Kamandi says, by the sound of that voice, I'd say we've run into more trouble. So let's see what we got. It is, so these are apes. This is an ape who is um, enslaving humans. And I would say that right here in the middle of the page is our first glimpse at Flower.
Yes.
And Flower
Long
is
anticipated.
yes, that this is going to be a kind of love interest, romance
That's what we
interest
want
for
to find
Kamandi.
out because I was touting this Kamandi comic as a post-apocalyptic romance comic, just like Turbo. But you were a little hesitant to let us keep going, so we just pulled back to post-apocalyptic and gotta wait on Flower. So,
Right. Well, we're gonna have to give a rating to how romantic this relationship gets into. I mean, I know that he was a companion for a long
mm,
time, and Kamandi, felt very protective of
mm,
her. But I don't remember too much of the other details. All I know about Flower is that she is um, very artfully covering her exposed breasts in every
she
single
naked.
angle,
She naked.
coincidentally, because this is a DC family comic, and you cannot show tatas. But her hair, even though her hair is being pulled by this monkey, it's draping in just strategically where it needs to be every single time, and there's always some kind of angle
Kirby
where
Tatas.
it's always right, where it's always covered. This is a family show. God forbid anybody
We're not a
sees.
family show. Don't you dare try to put us in
God
alignment with
forbid anybody
family.
sees Ariel. Well, that's what we're gonna have to explain, because our Turbo Pitfighter comic does have some exposed
Yes,
breasts, and
yes. Very
that's all we're
European.
gonna get.
It's very European.
Um,
Topless beaches.
right, and that could be a big deal whether or not we have to make separate versions, mature
Yeah, we're
versions.
gonna
We'll
find out.
cross that bridge when we get
Yeah.
there. Yeah, we're gonna get there. I noticed on some of these markings on these tigers. This kind of reminds me of like some Japanese brushwork, doesn't it? Or
Oh wow,
to you, or
yeah.
maybe some
I got that.
Asian
Yeah,
brushwork.
I get that.
Yeah, yeah. And so that's a little fun in there.
Royer's
Sometimes.
ink slinger. I mean, just even in you know, this heavier line, to the lighter line to show some sense of shadowing. I love this. It's just these bam bam and then this like squiggle fat. That's very Japanese calligraphy. I took 3 classes in over 2 years in college with 3 different teachers to get that feeling with the brush. And
Yeah.
whether he did or not, if you know, leave it in the comment. But he knows how to manipulate ink and a brush like no other.
And you also got to wonder if Kirby is just creating the pencils, how he's kind of translating this over because, these, this is another signature Kirby thing. These kind of squiggles that have thin and thick at the same time. That's all a product of these speedball pens that he was using that have a very flat surface, and he dips into the ink and he would kind of like move vertically and then laterally to get two different looks, and it's a real shortcut. Like here in the splash is a really good example, right? It's thin going this way, but it's fat going that way, and so you wonder if he's handing this off to Royer as pencils. Is he drawing in anticipation of how the speedball pen is going to move?
Oh, I would
I
think
mean,
so. I mean, I think they're because he's Royer's in uh, basically the same town, being on the West Coast with Kirby. So it's a physical handover of pages, and I'm sure there's a lot of chit chat over a ham sandwich and a glass of milk when Roz, drops that on him. So, um,
on the guide.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one thing about Kirby that doesn't necessarily follow like, realistic anatomy or shading, dynamic light and shadow. But he has a lot of balance, a lot of black and white balance. And so sometimes he's just kind of like filling in areas of black, whether they belong there or not. And that is the beauty and the artistry of Jack Kirby because it's not realistic. It's just, hey, I just want to balance my lights and darks more. And so you just have these shapes, and they're just Kirby shapes, right? They're
Yes.
not like they're nothing else, especially like Silver Surfer or
Well,
anything.
you
But
very
you know,
rarely get these like black out backgrounds. Like that's I don't think there's any black in any of the panels. I mean, this I'm not including that, but like where you would just I don't want to say shortcut, but once again, this is just a really heavy black angle to drop you down on this guy. Some words over here and then get you over
yeah.
here.
So getting back to the story here, they're holding these humans in a pen. Kamandi is hiding the fact that he has a gun, but this ape has a whip, and they kind of engage each other. Kamandi whips out the gun and shoots the ape again. From last issue, we were wondering, is he shooting to kill,
Mm,
or is this just
stun.
some kind of stun gun or something? Um, it says you've put him out of action, but is he dead?
Well, he says in that
It's just
panel right here, I didn't want to do it. Is he out
it's
permanently?
well,
No,
you
but I
shot him
don't
right in the
think.
heart.
No, but I don't think he'll wave that lash around for a long spell. So at this point, we can kind of say, hey, it's a knockout weapon, not a killing weapon. But
Right, and
we'll
this
find
is
out as
and
things
this
move
is
along.
something. Right, this is something where those word balloons might have
Well,
been,
he got this off
added
of an
later.
ape. So the apes wouldn't want to kill the humans because they're using them as slave labor and cattle type. So it could just definitely be like a rubber bullet type of thing where you would stun the the running off. Um,
But remember, in 1972, 73, we're still very cognizant
yes,
here of
yes,
the comic code, and you cannot shoot to kill in these
yes.
comics. I mean, even the Lone Ranger, he was on Saturday morning cartoons. All he ever did was just shoot the gun out of the other guy's
Yep.
hand, right? And it's like, give me a break. In real life, he would have been plugging these guys full of lead.
And then
So,
you would have just died from
so
lead poisoning.
eventually, right? You get dementia and you slowly
Yeah,
like spiral out.
yeah.
Yeah, so here we see Kamandi is looking face to face with Flower, and
Oh,
it's a very
yeah.
weird hand. If you notice that hand, it's that kind of came out bad right there. I don't know if that's
Yeah.
forward facing. I
Wow.
think it's supposed to be facing backwards, but not the
It's
best.
a like hey, stay away. Don't don't come near me. You're a wild one.
Well, yeah, I mean, if the palm is pointing to her, it could be like, oh, I'm touched. But if it's pointing away, it's like, oh, I'm warding off. But it's very unclear there. That's a very rare example of very clunky artwork and anatomy there.
Yeah.
But look, they're already holding hands.
Hell yeah, he's
Get
going to
up, miss.
educate
Let's.
her. That's what he says. She just needs a little education.
Yeah, he's gonna teach her. They look domesticated. I suppose they served as slaves and laborers for the gorillas. And Tufton says it's the only kind of life they're fit for. Give up your notion about changing them.
Yeah,
So,
sad.
they're kind of setting up, the world a little bit and the role of humans in the world. Very, very similar, to Planet of the Apes movie. And Flower is very, very similar to Nova, who appeared in the sequels, right? I think the Beyond the Planet of the Apes or Beneath the Planet of the Apes, but there was a very attractive actress, and she played Nova, a silent human. And I think this comic comes out after that sequel comes out. So,
Hmm.
here's Jack, really just taken from the playbook of the movies again. Just at that moment, in come the Tiger forces. So they've invaded this little pen, and Prince Tufton is there to greet them, and they're giving Kamandi some kind of status, separate from the other humans, so he's not caged. Um, and then let me see, they're on the march, and they're still in the middle of this fight. They don't believe, they're kind of in denial about Kamandi being able to speak. Did you hear that? The animal really spoke. Forget it. Just make believe that was the wood creaking. And yeah, so Tufton assumes his command role here, and
Great
you can see
pose, by
they're
the
all
way,
walking.
in the bottom panel. Kamandi slumped over and just really, really, really superior.
Yeah,
And
trying
most
to take
definitely
it.
done on the fly. I just want that
Yeah,
to be said.
yeah. This is all done. I mean, you do not see any photo references with Kirby. This is all just like out of his hand. Next page, Kamandi is letting the humans free, um, and they're making these kind of mumbling noises, and it looks like Flower is tailing him. I don't know if she has a name
Yeah,
yet.
she
Oh
says it
wait,
right down there.
oh
She
here we
just
go.
goes
Yeah,
flower, flower.
right. So the girl is following him, and it turns out she can speak, and she says, "Flower, flower, flower, my name."
Yeah.
So apparently these humans are a lot more advanced than we might think. Save it, Flower. That vehicle may be just what we need right now.
That's just a good.
And
Save it, kid.
he's running to hitch a ride. But and she's pretty fleet of foot herself. I love this because
Yes.
he just captures the motion of a sprinter. And even though she's a dainty girl, he pulls it all together. Commandy Flower thanks you. So now she's putting together full sentences. Um, and they're kind of stowing away here in the back of this little vehicle, or this little chariot vehicle. And let's say the tigers are pointing guns at them, but now we're in chapter 3, so we're going to reset here, and we're coming to the killing grounds, and this is where we see Murdoch Field. Um, what was once the landing strip of a large installation has become an arena for gladiatorial fighting. This is the stage set for the next dramatic act in young Commandy's life. So we see the forces are lined up here on the right. These are the Tiger armies in honor of Great Caesar, and it seems as though Kamandi has been designated to be one of the gladiators to fight in this arena match. Um, we see Tufton is trying to go to bat for him with Caesar, saying, Kamandi is an incredibly intelligent animal. We can communicate with each other, even as you and I, sire. You mustn't. Shut up, Tufton. We don't communicate at all. So they're just going to put him in the arena, and that's exactly what happens if we drop down to the bottom of the page.
Mm-hmm.
They do give him a nice sword, kind of a throwback to the ancient Roman days.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, if you have a brain, you'll use the sword. The second gladiator enters, and this is just an ape warrior who is speaking just as eloquently, and they're already talking trash against each other. And when we turn the page here in the middle of chapter 3, we can see here the fighting shall begin. So yeah, they're swinging at each other, and Kamandi is making some elusive moves. Finally, when he attacks with the sword, the gorilla intercepts his hand. This is a little bit reminiscent of the cover, right?
Yeah.
So this is the some of the thinking that went into the cover. Um, I'm looking at all these ads that you're not seeing, but you can buy a. Guess what? You can buy. You can buy a Abraham Lincoln penny.
For $5.
Wow, it was $1,
Whoa.
uh, and some of these coins are from the 50s. And
1950 or 1850?
I mean, talk about scam. They're selling a penny for $1,
Yeah, like
and
coin
then
collecting.
yeah, and then they're saying some of these coins were they were paid $80 for one of them, and somebody paid over $1,000 for one of them. Would they be really selling pennies that were worth $80 for $1? Doesn't make too much sense, but they got I guess they got enough business to keep going.
Hey, I want to bring attention to two panels, the top here and the bottom one here. But the inking, once again, the brush slinging that Royer's doing, and he's just
Yeah,
most definitely he's making up because there was nothing there. There might have been a line here and a line here to say the shape off of the back. Here's the arm, and then he's making these things happen, and it's just calligraphically, it's great. It's great. And then this face, how he hits it with these dots. There's something about moving um, uh, in, in life drawing. I can say I use a ballpoint pen because I don't like stopping to sharpen my pencil. But one of the
yeah,
things that can kind of come out of that actively is you end up sort of making these like marks. They just happen. It's a motor response, but it's not from a consciousness. This is just, I love it.
yeah.
I just beautiful. It's very it's
Expressionism.
very non comic booky in my classification of keeping things clean and
Yeah,
notative
I mean
to
it,
trapping color, and getting shit done. So I just want to say thank you, Mr. Royer, for slinging the ink.
yeah, it looks like he just went back. He drew the panel, then he just went back over it with speedball pens, which have a very flat tip, and he just made these dabs of darkness, and no time to go back and like integrate them in with little shading lines. It's just
It's great
on the
stuff.
fly here. Yeah, and
Boom.
we see it again
Tufton
in
gets
the
it.
next.
Yeah, Tufton jumps in now.
Yeah, so Prince Tufton comes to Commandy's aid when he's about to get his ass kicked in this fight, and the gorilla is struggling with him. Commandy smashes the log over his head and knocks the ape out. And so I guess that breaks the rules of the match. As Caesar is very pensive here at the bottom, is rendering judgment. He goes, "May I ask if this was asinine mockery
Yeah, I
meant
was
to
just
pass
reading
for
this thing.
mortal combat?"
Right.
And he says, "I'm sorry I ruined your spectacle, father. I couldn't let Kamandi die." And he implores that Kamandi will be useful to us. Let him live. And
Woo.
he says, "I can see little use for him. He'll have to work a miracle to gain mercy from me." But just at that point in the plot is when the arena erupts like a bursting volcano. The guerrillas are attacking with artillery. This is a great panel here.
Yes.
This and
Yes.
it's a little bit on the darker side,
Yes, I was
which
thinking the
which
same
which
thing.
which stands out, right? So he's
Yes.
got these little areas of black, but they're all over. There's more of them. This might be like maybe 60%, instead of 50-50. So that really brings kind of like a different feeling. And then we see here the cannons, the mortar, the giant mortar cannons that they're firing. So this is definitely a guerrilla assault here. And this legendary battle is going on. Um, I remember this. I remember this panel from back in the day.
This one
Um,
here.
yeah, it's really striking. It's
Oh,
again it's kind of cartoony for me. I mean, there isn't much of a snout. Maybe
yeah.
there should have been a little more protrusion.
They
Um,
done a
and I remember saying at the time that it was less realistic and more Kirbyistic or impressionistic, but that's Kirby for you. And you definitely get the anger and as they're squaring off with the other side. But then lo and behold, a truce team rides daringly into the encampment with a white flag, and the guerrillas are bearing a message from their commander. um, the Tigers are saying, "Let them through," and Tufton is very doubtful about this. And let's see, as we turn the page, what's going to happen. Again, also here we see this really dark panel border, which we haven't seen too much. But when they double up or triple up the panel border, it might be done just for effect or emphasis, but it might be covering up something. Maybe they did the panel border and the ruler slipped, and it got to be like a little diagonal. So they said,
could have
"Well,
been
I'll
a
just make it."
cutout. Could have been a cutout and paste up.
Right, or maybe they replaced a panel, and
Hmm
just to make it go quicker, they just made a darker
Maybe
panel border.
DC editorial for whatever that panel was like, nah, nah. And then
Well, if
this
you're
thing
ever
gets
using
hacks together.
yeah, if you're ever using your ruler and you're ruling out these lines with some kind of thick pen, like a drafting pen, um, sometimes the ruler slips and you make a diagonal line, and if it hasn't gone too far afield, you could just cover it over and make all the lines darker, or you got
Hmm,
to go get your white out. So
yeah,
it depends on what would
painting
you
for a
rather?
couple of days.
Yeah. So here the tigers and the gorillas are making some kind of truce. He says they're offering the tigers an escape route if they're willing to leave, as long as they keep the town. And Caesar tells them, no, close the escape route if you can. Caesar's forces will break the trap and break you. He's not willing to surrender or make any kind of deal. And the guerrilla says, think it over, Caesar. Our side is determined to take this town at any cost. And Caesar likewise says he is determined to hold it at any cost. And they're trying to appeal to his sense of logic. We're just trying to save needless casualties on both sides. If not, the town will run with rivers of blood. And this is where Kamandi steps in as a mediator. And he says, what's needed here is a third party, a mediator, he even says. You think they'd be willing to listen? You think they'd be willing to listen to me? And he says, they might. Well, Kamandi raises his voice and says, hear me out. I have a plan that could break this deadlock. And since they're in Las Vegas, says, why don't we meet our one-armed bandit here? And they're going, they're they're each going to get a coin, and they're going to put the coin in the machine, and they're going to leave it up to chance. And so that's going to be the fair way, just to figure this out at random. Here you see on the very bottom of this panel with Commandy's arm, this really thick black spot there that didn't look like it was thought through. It was just there for some darkness, and there's another example of how quickly these guys were rushing through the artwork, but it still has this kind of stylized look to it.
Yeah, I dig it.
So here, chapter 4. I guess this will be our final chapter. So they say that Kamandi assumes a mystic importance to his captors, a wondrous talking animal, perhaps the mouthpiece of some omnipotent unseen being. They listen as he unfolds his plan, and he tells of a unique machine once used by the ancients. Then they act when he orders it unearthed from the nearby ruins of Las Vegas, designed for gambling with money. The machine will now decide a gamble with death. Um, so now what's supposed to happen? They're going to each put in a coin, and whoever gets a spin, it works, Caesar. I had a hunch it would when I last saw it in these ruins. And I don't know how they're going to win because on these things you either get a payout or you get nothing, right?
Yeah.
So I guess well, let's see what happens. So they flip a coin. The gorilla goes first, and he wins 3 cherries, the symbols of a winning hand. And it says, "Fate seems to smile on my side." You'll have to match this, Caesar. And the tiger puts in his coin and gives it a spin. If Caesar loses, Kamandi's thinking, he may get angry enough to toss the machine and the rules out the window. So, there's no guarantee that he's going to abide by this. And when the machine spins, he gets 2 lemons and a stalk of wheat, and it goes bonk. The 3 symbols are not a match. How can it be that destiny has deserted Caesar? And then Kamandi says, perhaps destiny has shown Caesar a wiser path. So Caesar keeps his bargain. They shake hands, and I guess Kamandi saved the day. Um, and the Tigers are going to retreat and withdraw because Caesar kept his word. And not only that, Kamandi gets outfitted with a car, and he's got I don't know, some supplies in the back. He's got Flower riding shotgun, and it looks like they're going to be taking off into the hereafter here. Perhaps we'll meet again.
Newlyweds
Yeah,
heading on their honeymoon.
Command's taking off with a nice check.
Flower.
And yes, and Flower, for a tiger, Prince Tufton seems as human as you or I. Um, and
Aww.
here we see that talking about like ending quickly like last time. Kirby didn't even finish the page. He just left a space for an ad.
Well, this would have been, yeah, this would have been an ad. So that was an ad space being sold.
Right.
So they had to squeeze that in. That had to squeeze that in.
So it's 23 pages of story, right? And
22 and a half.
22 and a half, right? And
I don't think anybody got a full rate on that page.
so yeah, the comic was probably 32 plus 4, so you have that many pages of ads, like 10 pages of ads. And then you also have the time capsule here, which is the letters column.
Mm.
And you just have to look to see if there's any future Marvel creators in the letters column because
That's always a fun part.
um so yeah, we're just gonna
Here's
read.
a repeat. Here's a repeat in panel design. So this goes back to your little fave.
What do you mean?
So maybe
Oh
so
yeah,
see it's just this very up front and then foreground head
yeah.
up front yelling and hang. Maybe like I said, it was a replace and the editor said, well, just do something like this. Just redo that with his mouth yelling with like another tiger there,
It could be, yeah.
Kirby.
Sometimes you
You
see,
know?
yeah. Sometimes you see that.
Or it's just a subconscious like get through. Like we've been saying that, there's a pittering out at the end, which could be very much because, when we experienced the beginning of this issue, the end of the last issue, we were critiquing that the pittering out was far too quick and far too reduced. But with anticipation, 30 days later,
Well, we see we
big payoff again.
yeah, we see here that Kirby has introduced the female lead, Flower, and he's teasing in the next episode. Is there hope for mankind in Commander's new world? Don't miss Flower. So
Honeymoon.
we're looking forward to, yeah, is Kamandi and Flower gonna start humankind
Make,
again?
making puppies.
Yeah, we'll have to see what lies ahead. But this is a respite in the action, and where he's got a ride and he's driving away. We don't know where to. I guess we'll find out in the next exploding issue, the next exciting issue, issue 6. which was going to be due out in May of 1973. So, we are tracing a little bit of Kirby's process here, going using the Planet of the Apes movie as a template, but also departing and, just kind of chugging along with his style of very quickly made but very stylized comic art.
And readable, just hands down. At no point have we run into a sequence where we're scratching our heads going, well, how are we getting from this panel to that panel? Text wise and readability, we have found some things that make a jar and don't kind of maybe align up, but we've been also finding payout later in the issues. So it, we're still talking children's material, throwaway material, never going to be thought of and used as art or blah, 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 blah. Who would have known 40 years from now that?
Yeah.
But the consistency is one where it's just who matches it,
And
who really
when you
matches it.
see these Jack Kirby kind of like art portfolios, you see what he started to get to later in his evolution was, these kind of like fantastic creatures and fantastic machines where he's really just kind of, blending, this stylization of light and dark and color with this kind of like fantasy mechanized, you know, just kind of like language that was in his mind. I came across this issue here, from 1977. So this is like 4 years later, and where he goes back to Marvel. I mentioned that Marvel did get the rights to I guess spin off from 2001: Space Odyssey, basically just using the name and using
Yeah,
like the monolith. Here it says
yeah.
based on concepts from the MGM Stanley Kubrick production. So there's a real like you don't usually see that like this whole disclaimer thing in there or the whole credit. But look at this kind of like this splash, and this kind of creature that Kirby is getting into. I don't want to say devolving into, but his style is getting into this much more markedly Kirby-esque, stylized weirdness. And of course, you turn the page and it's a double page splash, and there's this machine here, there's the action here. This is kind of like it's funny, this issue, it takes the character into this simulated world called Comicsville, where everybody pays to dress up as a superhero. And this guy,
Wow.
yeah, and this guy is like the white zero, and he's going through this whole simulated adventure thing, that goes horribly wrong at the end, where the woman where he's supposed to rescue is kind of like heavy set. And then he said, wait a minute, what's going on here? You got the wrong princess. And they go, this was the only actress we could hire at the last minute. And he's like, what do you expect, Miss America?
Oh
So
God.
yeah, so these stories are weird. They just introduce characters and they take them you through, kind of like a Twilight Zone-ish storyline. Um I think this one's going to be connected, but he introduces a lot of fantastic concepts like this big egg-headed character, out in space. There's something strangely, alluring about her. And you know, they're letting Kirby just go off in all these directions. And I know
Why wouldn't you
I
though? I mean, at that point, he's 30 something years into the game, and nobody's trumped him yet by the 80s.
but I remember
Nobody. I mean, Steranko a little bit, um, but
I remember at the time looking down my nose at all these quick Kirby things. I mean, I loved Kamandi,
oh, yeah,
but
yeah,
2001 Devil Dinosaur, it was just too quick for me. It was like, I was like, yeah, Kirby's cranking stuff out. Like, I thought of him as like, kind of like, I don't know, like just a commercial, kind of, magician where he was able to do these things at super speed, and he might have been doing two, three titles a month, right?
Well, 1976, I believe, is the beginning of San Diego Comic-Con. So Kirby most definitely attended that.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I wonder what his reaction was to adults coming to him. He's sitting at a table saying, I'm making comic books for kids. That's what I'm being paid to do.
Yeah.
And he's doing a Kamandi and such and such. But then you get to 77 and he's there and people are like, oh, Mr. Kirby, oh, I've been
Right.
reading you since I was 4 years old and blah, blah, blah. And he's like, what the flying my, why are you guys here? I'm supposed to be in like Disneyland with a bunch of kids. So there could have been something where he walked away from that and said, whoa, I still have an adult readership that I need to not speak down to and give some higher lofty, um,
Ideas.
um, yeah. And so as film history goes, nothing's been able to trump um, 2001 Space Odyssey. Every major, director, cites that as, oh, I want to be a filmmaker now.
Right.
That's what I want to do. So he's like, oh, all right, let's do a spinoff on that.
Yeah, but
And
he was
yeah, once
also
again, you got to think,
yeah, he was
uh,
also looking forward to all of his Eternals worlds and New Gods worlds. He was doing a lot of interesting
yeah,
things. He was really thinking about, his own worlds and his own storylines, and they might have not been that commercially viable, but he would that's where his thinking was. And he was still cranking out comics for a page rate, and he was he wanted autonomy, I think, more than anything, which he
yeah,
which he got. Maybe
yeah,
too much autonomy by the time you get to,
yeah,
like, Silver Star, and he's not even working for a major anymore. um but if only he knew, like, how much his original art was going to be worth. It's going to be, he was making more for that than the page rate. I mean, he could have been, just doing conventions at that point if he wanted to, but
Well, I heard what he was most upset about was walking into like toy stores and stuff, and seeing all of his characters on these boxes and in these games and stuff, and him thinking, well, why am I not getting any pay from that? So, but then how do you keep yourself from being that creative and making? But I just want to bring back the whole idea of him introducing ideas, but I I can't really say to anything. I mean, Miracle Man, I've read over and over again. Kamandi, I have, but over 20 something years. So I can't really think of anything specific that was like a deeper idea getting depth. It was always just this thing popping up, and you're like, oh, wow, that's really cool. And then it goes on. But when people get a hold of Apocalypse and, all these other, even Big Barda, how far Big Barda has come across. And speaking of like big female characters,
yeah,
I think she's
she was the
hands down number one on my list for Marvel DC characters,
she was the only
as
one.
just being like, goddamn down. I mean, she was like a foot taller than Scott.
She was
You know what I mean? Like,
the
I
only
mean, it was
character,
incredible, incredible.
that was drawn stocky. The only female
Man,
that was drawn stocky. Even Thundra and all these other ones, they were never the She-Hulk. They were drawn big and muscly, but not stocky. And so,
yeah, they still had a curvaceous form to them.
well, they call it in
But
Yiddish. They call
yeah,
it Zaftig, right? When
yes, yes,
you're not just like, you're I guess, like, stocky or thick, thick boned or whatever. But
yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
so
yeah,
so yeah, that was a love interest for Miracle Man, but
yeah.
didn't develop it. Didn't get her own book. Never. I mean, later on they did more with the character, and she became one of this, like, feminine force. What do they call it? She Yeah,
Oh yeah, like a Fem Force 5 or something.
yeah, she would lead. Well, yeah, well,
Furies,
right,
Furies,
right. Yeah,
Furies.
there you go. Yeah, right. And so I'll
Yeah.
probably get into that because I bought all these books about superheroines, and
Oh, cool.
she'll probably be in there, but I'm
Hotness.
not up to it
Hotness.
yet. Yeah, so
All right. Well, let's put a closer to this one because we're 10 minutes over, but
as usual.
that's what you get when you go to Jake's house to hang out and talk comics and draw them. So if you've made it this far, thank you so very much. And obviously, if you're enjoying our content, stick with us. We've got 20 issues of Kamandi. We are also making our own comics. So Turbo Pit Fighter, big brawny gal with a petite little girlfriend in the post-apocalyptic romance comic. Um, so check it out. Jump out into our channel and give us a listen and a look because we're actually working on the comic book every Sunday at 11 o'clock for an hour at least. And and talking about making a comic in real time, real world
Yes,
format.
we have our
So
Kamandi
thank you.
episodes, and then we have our making of Turbo Pit Fighter episodes, and then we talk about pop culture, movies, TV, superhero, sci-fi, you name it. It all
Yeah.
a lot of subjects came up, including future planned comics too that are just in the
Yeah.
idea kernel stage.
Yeah. We ain't going anywhere. That's all I want everybody to know.
Right.
So we're
Cool.
doing this to stay technologically relevant and advanced. But you know, Jake and I have known each other for
Quite a
almost
while.
30 years, but 20 of them, Jake was off raising a family, and I was off being uh, silly.
Gallivanting. All right. Well, thanks everyone for
Getting my
thanks everyone for tuning in, and come see us. Just binge watch and just go one from the other, and listen to us.
and make comments.
Yes, make comments and make comics. Well, listen to us while you're making your own comics.
Yes,
All right.
make comments, make comics. And Alexander, thanks again for making your suggestion and helping us direct and focus people to us. So thanks again. All right, I'll see you later, Jake.
Bye, Kurt.